So Joyce, you got to call the
Oh,
meeting to order.
all right. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the South County Senior Center Board of Oversight. The thing on our agenda today is to hear from our feasibility study movers and shakers. Um, and maybe I'll just turn it over to Chris then, or
Yeah,
Doug,
yeah.
whoever's going to be leading on this.
I'll take the baton. So we last spoke, we were showing some ideas for all three sites. We gave some rough order of magnitude costs, not really super detailed or developed cost estimates, but something that you guys could compare site to site. We showed a bunch of different options for the three sites that we were looking at prior. Since then, we got word that we wanted to move forward and start to look at with a finer tooth comb the Whately site and the Deerfield site. With the caveat of the Deerfield site, we wanted to look at also the town hall location as a potential instead of the church. So that's what we're going to be looking at today is a refined version of those two sites, and how a building or an expansion would look in those locations. I've also been given the direction to look at a compromise between our high priority and our medium priority program spaces to see if we can't get that, see if we can't be more efficient with our space usage. So that's kind of the gist of the things that we wanted to show today. So I'm going to go through kind of the overview of where we are with the program, and Brian's going to go through this different site stuff that we're going to look at, and Doug's going to walk through the actual floor plans that we're going to show. So I'll share my screen. Sharing is not turned on.
Yeah, give me a second.
Just got a thumbs down.
Hold on. No, I don't know how to get this off. Okay, there you go.
All right, I'm good.
Can I ask a question, Chris?
Sure.
Who said that there needed to be a compromise for spacing?
So in conversations with Chris Dunn, which as he described it to me was further conversations behind the scenes with select board members and whatnot. It was the 15,000 square foot medium and high priority did not seem viable, did not seem like we could build consensus to something of that size.
So let me just chime in a little bit here.
Sure.
And my intention on this feasibility study was that we were going to look at one, what is feasible, right? For sure. And then to look at a couple spaces and to really flush out the needs of the center. And then, what the towns decide to purchase or buy or build in the future is kind of up to the towns to negotiate and decide.
Sure.
My worry is that we would shortchange our needs, right? I mean, I think the public really needs to understand what the needs are, regardless of money and future. And then, sure, there are a lot of people pushing in a lot of different directions for, oh, this can't be this, or we wouldn't do this, or we've got to fit it here because the town will never go for that. But I'm concerned a little bit that we would pigeonhole ourselves into something because of what we could afford versus what the truth. I understand that, like, in the end we might wind up with 7,000 square feet or 6 or whatever it might be, which is ridiculous. But I really think the public needs to understand, for the lot of money that we're spending for the feasibility, is to, here are your needs, right? This is, if money wasn't an issue, we were going to build here, you need 15,000 square feet because you need to fit all this in, and you need this much parking. And in the end, we can only have this plot here, so you're gonna wind up with 10 or 12 or whatever it might be. But I just don't want us to steer to 10,000 square feet or something without really knowing, without educating the public on truly what their need is, honestly.
Yep.
Like, here's your need, and like, this is what you may decide to buy in the future.
And I also have a concern similar to Trevor's, is that the vague select board people were contacted. I was not contacted. I'm the only select board member from Whately who is actively involved here. Dan could indicate whether he was contacted or not. This may well be just a town administrator's opinion, based on people who aren't heavily involved in this process. So I think Trevor is correctly expressing the
Sure.
will of this body to stick with what we need, and if we have to cut back later, then we cut back later.
Yeah.
And I appreciate though if you already have input on what a 12,000 square foot place would look like, that's fine. I wouldn't say throw that away.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I think we already know that that's a possibility after the study, but the feasibility study is about information, information that we need to make decisions.
Well, we definitely, and I totally hear what you're saying, and apologize that it got to this point. I'm got bad information apparently, so sorry that it got to this.
I don't,
But in
I don't
terms
think
of,
it's bad. It's not bad. It's just that we
Okay.
just want to know what the, you
Yeah.
know, really what the needs are, and then educate the people on like, hey, you're never, we can't afford this need, but recognize it's here.
Mhm.
Or maybe you all decide, hey, we've got tons of money and we want to build this.
Yeah.
But really, honestly, like, you can afford 10 or 12,000
Sure.
on this space now. And if you want to decide to do something later, at least you know what the costs are and what the needs are.
Right. And I think for where we are today, you know, based on what I'm hearing from you guys, I do think that this exercise will be valuable in
Right.
terms of, you know, the size of a facility located on, you know, these parcels.
Yep.
You know, we could, what I'm going to show is not drastically different from the desirable program.
Yep.
It's a little bit smaller, but if we say, no, you know, we like what you showed, but we really want to try to get that extra 4,000 square feet or whatever the delta is. You
Yeah.
know, you'll be able to see in the diagrams here what that kind of means. Sometimes it'll mean we need to add a second floor. Sometimes it'll mean, you know, taking away green space. Like we'll kind of be able to see the impact of that. So I don't think this will be a worthless exercise, hopefully.
Okay.
But I totally hear what you're saying. So unless there's any other comments.
I just have a question. So
Sure.
what is the scalable size? How far down did it go to?
I think we were in the 11,000 square foot range for the different options. I think 12,000 we landed on at Whately, and I think it was 11,000 for the Deerfield site. So
And
I
yeah,
just want to weigh in. I agree with Trevor and Joyce that, you know, the 15 is kind of the key. And I guess as a Sunderland rep, I'll say it's funny that we're going down now, and it makes me wonder if I should dig up the one you did the 12,000 for this Plumtree Road. I know that site's out, but I'll definitely be looking back to that when I see the new analysis.
sure.
yeah, well, the Plumtree Road is 12,000 square feet. So that's exactly where we're at. And we said no to that because we would have to put an addition. And then it was too far for people to drive.
Yeah.
So if we're going to build in either location, I mean, you know, the 8 Conway Street is fine if you build up, I think, what's the existing square foot?
I don't even know.
It's like
I'll
10,000
find
square
out.
feet or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
But Trevor, I just think it's interesting. Trevor's on the select board for Deerfield, and this is the first time he's hearing of it. So
I know that there's push for, like, you know, people with finance knowing what we can afford, tax base and all, looking at, can we afford this kind of thing, and should we gear this exercise into more realistic, you know, so that what comes out of this we can actually do.
Mhm.
But I also feel like, and I understand that, and I'm with that, I get it, but I also really want the residents of all three towns to understand what their true needs are.
Sure.
And if they all decide we can't afford to build 15,000 square feet, that's their choice. But I just don't want to tell them, hey, we did all this work and we're going to do 10,000 or 11,000 square feet or 12,000 square feet, but your need was really 15. And they don't know that. We never saw it. So this is the more prominent message versus the prominent message of you're needing 15,000 square feet. And you know, there's a lot of opinions that say, well, you don't need that, but you are all the experts and have said, based on the look of this is what you need. And so I would say, well, if you say we need 10,000 square feet, who are your experts and what money have you spent? What study have you done to say that this is your need? And you don't need anything more. I mean, I get afford and need. I just wanted to show the two, like we can afford this, but this is your true need because you're going to come back to this. It's not like we're reducing population of seniors. All right. Well, we've hashed that enough.
And I hear you loud and clear.
Yep.
The design team doesn't really have a dog in the fight in terms
Right.
of how big this thing, you know, ends up being in terms of what we show to the public. This is
Sure.
all part of the process of studying and
Yeah.
examining and checking this and checking that and looking at that box. And so I think this will just be part of the process. This is by no means like this is what we're recommending.
Right.
But
Right.
I think
Okay.
I think it's definitely a worthwhile exercise just so you guys can see maybe for those hard conversations that we all know will come,
Yep.
what we could potentially need to live with, if that makes
Okay.
any sense. We can always bump this thing back up in our diagrams, but
Sure.
like I said, I don't think it's going to be a completely worthless exercise. So let me go back and
I think also if we back up,
sure.
the architectural program that was developed was in direct response to discussions with Jennifer and putting together an architectural program that was based on current and future expectations of the senior center and their needs.
Mm-hmm.
So the original number that we came up with, the original program that we came up with is the answer based on expectations and needs.
Mm-hmm.
From that point, and I understand your frustration of, you know, who are the people pulling the strings on this discussion, but you know, we've been asked to, the first thing we were asked to do was look at have to have, want to haves, need to haves,
Mm-hmm.
and evaluate it that way, which we did, but that kind of gutted things out that just, you know, just because it would be nice to have doesn't mean you don't have to have it as well, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Right.
now we're looking at that compromise as to what that means. But to get back to your point, Trevor, the original architectural program was in response to that process.
Yeah.
So that number's known,
It is.
and part of the problem or part of the process in looking at that are the 3 sites that we've been charged to look at.
Yeah.
And Jennifer, as you said, you know, one of the sites is an existing building of 12,000 square feet. Based on the original architectural program, we would have had to add on to that building. So the
Right.
process is showing this is what we collectively determined is appropriate. And now what does that mean looking at these 3 sites?
Yeah.
Now narrowed it down to 2 sites.
Okay.
So let me jump into it. So like I mentioned, this is the kind of the outline of things. You know, we wanted to look at the refinement of the program. We're going to look at the 2 different sites with some floor plan and site plan options, and then go down to look at the last thing, which is going to be what we call our scorecard analysis. That's going to be looking at different evaluation criteria that we use a lot on projects, that starts to look at the sites objectively and compares them objectively to each other and gives them scores based on, different criteria, like, is the site adequate to handle the program? Does it have utilities? There's a bunch of different criteria which we'll look at, and it's trying to actually compare in an objective way each site to one another. So we'll go through all these three things.
Okay.
So the program, so this is the document that we were talking about in terms of, like, trying to figure out, is there a compromise? I know that that's now in question, but we were looking at past projects, looking at the spaces that we thought we needed out of this medium category, and just try to figure out, based on some other projects that we worked on, giving you the spaces that are in the medium category, and still making them viable, but maybe not as large as the original program called for. So
Chris, is there any way you can make this bigger, please?
absolutely.
And I wonder if you can email that to us so that we can have it on
Yeah.
our own screens.
Right now, I can send it to you, if that would be
Yeah,
easy.
I think that's probably true of like whatever materials you're showing today.
I'll send it to you right now.
Thanks.
Excellent.
On its way.
Thanks.
So just to quickly go through it, and then we can start to look at the sites. But like I said, all the high and medium spaces are included in this compromised solution. So you can see where what the program called for, and where we're going to be landing in terms of how the plan laid itself out. And I think Doug was going to be able to, as he goes through the plan, talk a little bit about, all right, if we do have a kitchen that goes from 800 to 500 square feet, what does that mean for function? If the large multipurpose room goes from 24 to 16, what does that actually mean? But again, these are spaces that we've created in the past, spaces that are still viable. They're a little bit smaller. So it could,
I'm just looking at the square footage of what you're showing, and I can tell
Yep.
you already, after talking with other senior center directors and just knowing professionally, like the kitchen, 500 square feet is way too small for the capacity of what we would have. When we're doing large events, sometimes we get over 100 people already when we're at this interspersed locations. And I know we would definitely get more than that if we had a centralized location. And having such a small kitchen really is really hard to make things function. So I can tell you 500 square feet is not going to fly.
They're all really low.
Yeah,
Exercise
it's
as well.
really reduced drastically for space.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah, each one of these-
obviously cutting out like the second bathrooms, that's not an issue, because when we toured with the Hadley Senior Center,
Mhm.
they don't have a separate staff bathroom, not a problem.
Sure.
But
I feel like the exercise and stuff
yeah, those
is
really
like,
went down a lot.
based on the survey you sent out, was like the most important thing of the senior center was this gathering together and the exercise and dance space.
Right.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
Nope, that's okay. And I think this is all, I mean, we need to hear all of this stuff. And
Yeah, it's
this
too
is gonna
small.
inform all of these things. I think what I would ask though is that let's let Doug, Doug's gonna be the one that goes through the plan and actually tells us what this means, what losing 400 square feet out of the exercise fitness room means, in terms of like functionality and use. Because looking at the numbers, yeah, I totally agree. It looks like massive cuts, but I think that what we should be focusing more on is what the actual functionality of the space is. Does it go from 20 people to 16 people? Like, and I totally, if it's 20 people and that's what it has to be, that's what it has to be. We'll
Yep.
bump this
We
back.
literally get I mean, at the Whately Town Hall for the enhanced fitness for Friday classes, we're at 27 to 30 and that's crammed.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
Yep. So without going through every line,
Right.
you know, there is definitely cuts that sounds like are going to be painful. So we'll just keep rolling through the plan here, and then we can double back.
Okay.
So we have the Deerfield site, which we looked at, were originally the church. This was what we were honed in on before. This is just a summary of all of the pieces and parts of
Yep.
that municipal campus here. We started to overlay the 1888 building, which sounds more and more likely that it's going to happen. So we want to be able to work with it in addition to the library renovation that's currently underway. And again, make sure that we're planning in conjunction with these things that are happening. And then the site plan, proposed site plan, I'm going to let Brian jump in and walk through this guy. So Brian, you want to
Yeah.
explain the concept here?
Yeah. So as you know, the left-hand portion of Town Hall comes out. Our new building is situated there, facing to the left side of the screen. You can kind of see a single entry point on Conway where you can arrive and go pull into a drop-off right in front of the building, and then navigate to parking in and around this area. One of the challenges at just the Congregational Church site was just the lack of parking adjacent to the front door and navigating there. So, you know, combining this kind of layout with what's happening as part of the 1888 building, you can see our parking totals are much closer to target and what we're looking for the senior center. There's also this kind of shared connections that we are trying to make in this kind of campus area, connecting the library to police station, to the 1888 building, and then, you know, also to our senior center space. The other element here is just the relocation of the baseball field, but we've seen in other iterations of improvements or suggestions on this property that there are walking trails, there are they do move the field, so it didn't seem like it was out of realm to make that suggestion. So you know, just kind of giving everybody a glance here at this layout.
the only negative thing, Brian, is the police department uses the entrance and exit, so they would go into that parking area. That's that would be something to consider because they don't let you go around.
Well, they're
They
looking at an addition too. I don't know if you've
no,
talked to Chief about that into this plan. I
No.
think they're talking about some bays, but I think they're coming more towards the 1888 building space.
but with their in and out of
Here.
their parking
Yeah.
structure, like, are they gonna be going loop this way? Because when they come out fast,
Yeah.
so that's why we're not allowed to park along the side there or whatever.
Yeah, we'll have to check in on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, as far as police went, we tried to leave them their shell that they kind of have now. They have like that kind of space out there where there's parking up against the building. They have the
Yep.
garage bay doors. We
Right.
tried to isolate it and keep it, you know, contained. So
Yep.
if driveways and things have to move, I think that's all fair arguments. It's just we haven't, you know, totally coordinated with their efforts.
Sure. We'll have
And
to do point. Okay.
And I think, you know, right now the entrance to the town hall and police department is right about here. I think there'd have to be some reworking of that entry, but the point being that we could keep the police station entry here in this respect with, you know, public parking here. Can we lose some of these spaces and pull this curb cut back a little bit? Maybe, you know,
Yeah.
I think isolating just because of the function of the police department would be important. So, you know, is there a row of bushes or trees here to give a little bit more privacy? Is there a connection through this lot here? So it's not, you know, it's not a kind of a dead end. And does that change how they access the parking? I think we can kind of coordinate and look at all that stuff. But I think the main point here is that just based on our understanding of, you know, the functions of the buildings, this police station area would want to function kind of on an island and
Yes.
a bit of isolation. You know, a rec center directly adjacent to a police department, not ideal in terms of you know, project use type, But I think in terms of how we treat the perimeter of the police department parcel, I think will go a long way in giving the senior center its own identity kind of along the back area here, facing the ball field, which could be nice. You know, it could be a nice green space that the senior center is looking towards, but
Yeah, but it's not usable green space for us.
well,
Not
that's,
yet.
I mean, that was part of my question to you guys was, I don't know how well used that ball field is. And does the ball field need to remain a ball field? Can it just be a town green space? You know, has there been any other conversations about, you know, that green area within the,
You know, there's been discussion about like moving the ball field and putting senior housing there, that kind of thing at one point.
yeah,
A lot of people love that ball field. However,
gotcha.
there is another ball field right next to the elementary school that doesn't get used as much and could get remodeled and be the more predominant field, you know,
Gotcha.
that's an option. I would have to talk to the rec department and all that stuff, but I think that we might be able to kind of, if it's getting too crowded here, move it over to the field that's not used as much, enhance that field and open this up for space for the senior center, for, you know, for the town hall, for other events too.
Exactly.
So think
Right.
about. Yep.
Is that a 2-story, the 11,000, is it a 1-story, 2-story?
That's one story.
Thanks.
And we have ability to go up if we'd want to.
Yes. So I think in the context of the broader discussion here with the larger building, you know, if we left here saying, yep, Chris, thanks for looking at that, but no, we don't like that smaller footprint. We need a larger facility. We would, as you can see here, just based on how tight things are getting, we're going to have to add parking to accommodate that additional, you know, the additional user base to meet the program. And, you know, adding square footage, we're going to have to go up. So those are the two challenges. As you can see here, adding parking, you know, we'll have to be creative about finding the space, unless, you know, we're just going to live with what we're currently showing, which is around 73 spaces.
Okay.
And it will 100%, the building will need to go to a 2-story, because I don't see a world in which we, you know, increase the footprint and lose more parking. It just would start to get really tough. So I don't think it's impossible to do a 2-story space here, but it just adds challenges. It adds inefficiencies. It adds some complexity to it, but not to say that it doesn't make any sense on this site. So just something to keep in mind as we're, like I said, talking about the broader context of putting the building back to the 15,000 square foot option.
Okay.
So going to the plan, Doug, you want to walk through real quick
Yeah, so this is an orientation to the site plan, so you can see entering on the left-hand side of the building. Yeah, there you go. So what we've done is we've created a vestibule that comes into the building. So you've got your drop off over on the left-hand side. As you come into the building, you've got your lobby, lounge, cafe seating. Your reception desk is right there. So you've hit an arrival point as you come in the building. The large multi-purpose room is located to the bottom, which would be to the right as you went to enter. Looking at,
Can you make that bigger, Doug, please? Thank you.
yeah, Chris, good, thank you. Again, trying to think about the orientation of what's on the site as well. This would give us a corner with some nice windows. There is some patio opportunity out front and out on the street side of the site for the large multi-purpose room. We're showing the large multi-purpose room dividable. So you've got the opportunity to make 2 smaller spaces in that regard. Being served by the kitchen, which is behind it, with the food pantry and the table and chair storage that comes into the large multi-purpose room. So when you're moving furniture around, you've got that access right there. When you're in the main lobby lounge area, the first activity space in front of you is the equipped fitness room. We ended up with 8 pieces of equipment and some stretching area. I think in the larger, we had 12 pieces, or we had 10 to 12 pieces of equipment. The one thing that we were looking at here was trying to identify the fact that along the right edge of this building was the police station and the police parking area behind the building. So we were looking at creating spaces that wasn't critical to have windows. The thought was that probably the Equip Fitness room could be glass across the front, trying to make the lobby lounge as bright as possible, maybe with even some overhead lighting, daylighting, which would get daylighting into that Equip Fitness room. We've set up the office suite again along the front face of the building. Come into the office suite, we've got the offices, and we've got a connectivity to a conference room within the office suite, but that conference room is also connected to the public circulation, so it can be used both as an activity space and for the office use. We've provided the nurses' personal services room that's accessible both from the office suite and from the public side. And we've also made that companion restroom in the nurses' suite also accessible from the office. So in the compromise of not having a staff toilet room, we have access from the suite into that companion restroom. On the hallway side, we've got the large exercise studio next to the Equip Fitness room. And across the front of that, we've got the restrooms. We've got a men's restroom and a women's restroom, and then 2 companion restrooms across the hall as well. So they're centrally located in the entire building. As we continue up the hall, we've got the art and music classroom. So the art and music classroom and the conference room can have windows to the top of the page, and the conference room also to the right of left of the page. The art room probably wouldn't want windows on the right-hand side, because that's still going to be into the police parking area. And then at the end of the hallway would be an open lounge space, which again, could be glass, ends up being a nice destination, which visually shortens the hallway. And we could have windows across that area, and even doors. Well, we would need doors for exiting purposes, but we could also have doors to get out to the outside there. So this is about 11,000 square feet. As Chris was saying, we've got 72 parking spaces. That's in the realm of acceptance for 11,000 square feet. There's overflow on site, but I think the overflow on site with regard to parking is going to flow both directions, depending on what activities are going on around the site. To go to a second story, what gets lost on the first floor is we've got to make space for the elevator and stairways, and we'd have to have 2 stairs. And that would take some of these rooms, or, make the decision as to what's upstairs and what's downstairs. But the impact of that, as Chris said, if we end up going to 15,000 square feet, we're significantly short on parking. And that's, that's the impact. Again, that's the impact of this site. So the real question in that regard, and the concerns you've expressed, is, does this site work for anything larger than 11,000 square foot building? The other thing that you were talking about was the large multi-purpose room, as an example, was identified originally in the program at 2,400 square feet, which was calculated to be able to hold 120 people in banquet style seating. At 1,600 or 1,570, we're down to about 80 people in banquet seating in that large multi-purpose room. And then you've already expressed your concern about the size of the kitchen based on the production size of what that kitchen can provide.
Doug, what's the number of added spots for this added parking?
There's 73 specifically dedicated to the senior center.
Thanks. Oh, I'm sorry. It's right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, that's basically this front lot here, and then the 2 side lots. Those are what we are calling the senior center parking in this little chart here.
Can we go back to the layout, please?
Yep.
So first, one of the issues that we expressed in the beginning of this project was we wanted a room dedicated solely for food purposes, like for meals, because one of the issues that we don't want to have to continuously roll out tables, put tables away, roll out tables, put tables away. So that's giving us one main room of 1,570 square feet to continuously change up. So we can't have multi-purpose space for certain things if we wanted to do that. I think the equipped fitness space, Hadley has, what they have 5 pieces of exercise equipment. So you got space for 8, or is it 4 pieces of equipment and then stretching space?
No, it's 8 pieces.
So I think we would take away 3 spaces because a 532 square foot kitchen is not big enough. I'm going to tell you that right now. For the capacity of what we need. We need a space for storage, for like for what we're working out of here, and then even over at some of the when we were at the church space that we rented for a while, that was not big enough. We were tripping over each other, and a food pantry isn't I don't want it to be a closet. I want it to be accessible, or, you know, the whole goal with that is so people from the community who need to go through it can go through and feel empowered to choose their own food. So it's not just a closet to put food, it's an open space for people to walk through to have access to. And then if you scroll back up, I think that's a big waste of space at the top. There's nothing there in a janitor's closet so far from the kitchen and other things where you would really need a janitor's closet. I think that should be closer to that.
You were probably thinking for the bathroom.
Yeah,
right? I mean, I think
I
that's
mean,
what
is that what that's
thinking,
for?
probably.
So maybe move it on the other side
Mhm.
down,
Yep. More
but,
centralized, yeah.
and there's 3 comp changing rooms. I mean, like, I understand the one next to the nurse's space, but why do we have 2 extras if that was for the staff bathroom?
Well, those are companion restrooms. But they're all, I mean, they're large enough to be changing spaces if you want those, but those are private restrooms.
Yeah, I think we would only need 1 or 2 max. We don't need 3.
But you don't, do you want I mean, the nurse's restroom is a restroom with shower
Right.
connected to the nurse's suite.
Yep, but
So
she's
maybe
not there every day, so we could use that comp changing for accessibility regularly, because Nikki over at the Hadley Senior Center specifically said that that was a waste of space. Just to have one that was just off.
Want that
So,
accessible to the public side, as you're saying?
yeah, I don't understand why it can't be accessible. I mean, people. Yeah,
Okay,
so there should be that should be accessible to the public.
okay.
Because the nurse is only there 3 days a week, and she's only there for 3 hours each day. So I don't foresee that, you know, that not being open to the community, because if we have an accident or someone who needs to go in and change, that should be open anyway.
Mhm.
Just my thought.
Yep.
Mechanicals for this, are they on the roof or something, or what are you thinking? For like all the air handlers and,
Yeah, we were thinking mostly on the roof.
Mhm.
We'll probably need to carve out a small space somewhere for a boiler and electrical panel.
Yeah.
But most of the stuff we were thinking is gonna go up on the roof.
Okay,
This is too small.
all right, well, we're hearing what this would be.
I know.
And then we'll address.
So going over, so staying at the town hall site, one of the things that, you know, we've heard many, many times at the public outreach and was you know, what are we doing with the church? So we wanted to at least look at the church from a high
Okay.
level standpoint.
Yep.
To say, hey, what could you guys do with the church, and how could it maybe benefit the community? And, you know, just looking at high level, and we could, I don't think we have to take it any further than this, but we wanted to just say, hey, you know, as a benefit, if we're not touching the church for senior center specifically, you know, do we think that there's anything beneficial for the community at large? So just looking at it, trying to say what makes sense for the church, what could fit. We wanted to just dash in, you know, the activity that we heard a lot about at the public outreach event was pickleball, right? So if the sanctuary turned into a gymnasium, you know, how would that fit different activities? It's definitely too small to fit a basketball court. It doesn't have the width. You could definitely put a hoop up here and whatnot, but from a standpoint of pickleball, we dashed in the rough size of a pickleball court. So you could technically fit something like that in here. And just make it one wide open space. I don't think, just based on the structure and how the space is currently used, or it was used in the past, I don't know that it makes sense to chop that space up. I think it should be used as a wide open space. So thinking of it as a kind of a rec area, gymnasium, a large multi-purpose space makes some sense. The challenge with this building is the accessibility to the different sides of the building, from the church proper to the annex, and bathrooms. If you do start to make these, more permanent, large assembly spaces, you need to meet the bathroom requirements. So just looking at, hey, if we got rid of that mezzanine level upstairs, which would take a significant structural upgrade to even make that functional, if that whole mezzanine just comes down and it's a big wide open space, you get rid of the stairs here. We have a crawl space below, so it wouldn't be too big of a deal to add some restrooms up front here and keep kind of your main entry at the front. So just looking at, just again, super high level, what spaces would go where, how could you make this into a usable community space? And then over here on the annex side, keeping the auditorium with the stage makes some sense. If it's beneficial to the town, it could be one large wide open space. If you didn't want the stage, but if you kept the stage, we would have to add a lift. So looking at, what does it mean to add a little bit of a accessibility lift?
So are you talking about using this for the senior center? Because
No,
that,
it's just a town community space.
but why are we doing that now? This is supposed to be feasibility study for the senior center.
This was just added stuff. All right.
Just looking at it from a standpoint of like, how could the senior center specifically wouldn't use this space dedicated, but I remember.
Yeah, but we're limited on
guys
time,
were-
so that's why I'm asking, because we
All
could
right.
move to Whately. I'm
Okay.
getting over to a meeting, or we've got the food truck today, so that's why I'm kind of crammed for time.
Okay, I will zoom past that.
Thank you.
Brian, you want to zoom through the Whately site?
Okay. I would like to spend the appropriate amount of time on the Whately site. Let's
Yes.
just,
Yes,
We will talk about the Whately site.
Wanted to pull this up bigger. So, as Chris mentioned, we had the addition onto this current building. As far as circulation and coming into the site, we're still maintaining the Sandy Lane entrance. As you kind of come in, we figured there could be an opportunity for some staff parking spaces right there up against the building. But as you come in, you'd kind of come in and do a circular motion to come and drop from the passenger side at the front door. The front door of this is kind of where we're showing that drop-off arrow, but it's right where Chris is drawn. So, we kind of reformat this parking lot as well to accommodate more senior center friendly, parking scenario where they walk down a couple main sidewalks that are right adjacent to the car and kind of get you to the front door. The nice benefit here is that when things kind of get reworked and we kind of have our senior center off to the right here, there is some flexibility for some outdoor spaces. So whether it be a patio off the right side, whether it be amenities in the back, there is space as we kind of approach our parking target. Again, which is I think we highlighted 65 to 100 spaces for this. But again, this is kind of what we are considering here.
So this dotted line here just represents space to the left is town hall space, and the space to the right would be what the senior center would be utilizing. So flipping over to the plan here.
So again, looking at the layout here, one of the advantages we have with this site is the opportunity for windows on all three sides.
Yeah.
And so in looking at this, similar approach to the vestibule, and we've moved a large multi-purpose room to the back corner. It's also increased in size. One of the biggest issues we had with this building was the fact that the existing building has 2 different levels.
Right.
And what we've determined is, rather than have to deal with those 2 different levels, we were going to infill the lower level up to the main level of the building. So with regard to, you know, grading and then infilling above, building on top of the lower level, which is that loading dock area. And then the addition gives us the large multipurpose room. The large multipurpose room is positioned in this location because there are columns in the rest of the building. And so to have a column-free large multipurpose room, that had to be outside of the footprint. So that the red dotted line is the physical addition. Everything to the right of, or the left of that, is existing building. And as you can see, the purple slashed area is the floor infill that has to be raised up to that level. So again, we've got the office suite, same components. So Jennifer, your comments work here too as well, but the nurses' personal services room and the companion restrooms and storage. And then we've got the lobby lounge is see-through. So we've got the opportunity for the lounge to be on a windowed area. The exercise studio and the equipped fitness room also, everything has an opportunity for view out the back. And then the art music room and the conference room becomes inboard, because we're trying to maintain the town's existing square footage over on that side of the building without encroaching upon that. So you can see there are some columns that we've had to work within and around, and for the most part, they are out of the way. But as I said, that's the reason why the large multipurpose room, one of the reasons. The other reason is that with the amount of people that can get into that space, we certainly want them to come in and out of the building as quickly as possible, and also to have enough breakout space if we've got 120 people coming and going out of that space, having enough breakout space in front of that and queuing up space accordingly.
I'm curious.
So we'll skip the draft scorecard criteria. I don't think this is critical for this discussion, so open for questions and comments.
I just want to say, you know, I understand going to 12,000 square feet or 11,000 square feet because Deerfield might be limited for space, but with Whately, it's not as limited. So if you're building, you could expand that more, like we talked about with the 15,000 square feet, or even compromising and going slightly smaller. But
Yep.
I think the kitchen's kitchen's too small. It's number one. Number two, on the feedback surveys that that I read through your responses, and as they came in, biggest commentary was people don't come as frequently because it's not one singular space. I think once we have a larger space, we're going to get additional folks in. And we need the space to accommodate them. And here we're left with one large multipurpose room again. How many people can fit in each segment of that room with the way you have the tables laid out there? What's
Let
the
me just look
capacity?
real quickly here.
Because that's
We can get about 85 in both sides.
85 on both sides.
Let me just make sure here. Hold on.
Because I can tell you right now, if we're doing, one of the big things people want is a congregate meal daily, which we have not been able to offer because we don't have the space. And when we were renting the church, we weren't allowed to use all the equipment in the kitchen. So, even if we got 50 to 75 people daily, I'd want to keep one space where it's constantly set up as a kitchen area or whatnot.
Yeah, you're only going to get about 85 people total in this area. The divide can happen anywhere, but again, I mean, the short answer is the 2,400 square feet that was in the original program is what you need to meet. The other thing, Jennifer, and as Chris has said, and understand, we're not defending that you go this direction.
I understand. I know you're just showing me the things. I'm just giving feedback because I think
Yeah,
it's
no, your feedback
important for
is
people to
critically
know,
important.
that that's important, because a lot of people making the higher elevation decisions aren't here daily and aren't involved in this discussion at all.
Mhm.
One of
And
the
that's
biggest
disappointing.
issues, you know, and we've talked about this again and again, is even if we go larger on Whately's site, then you're still not gonna have room for the parking. And that's, you know, that again is problematic. So if we go to 15,000 square feet, we're gonna want an additional 30 parking spaces or 25 parking spaces. And this site doesn't lend itself to that.
How much square, how many acres do you need for parking and a 15,000 square foot? Like, what's the plot size? If it's a blank square? Is it like it just doesn't fit on this property at all, or if this property had nothing on it, can you accommodate it? Or do you
Well,
need?
if this property didn't have anything on it,
Yep.
we would easily be able to put the original
Mhm.
program size building and parking on this site.
And, okay, that's what I was just curious, just if there was
Brian, you
nothing
agree
there.
with that statement?
Yeah.
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 I agree.
One story.
It's a, and just to answer your question, like 100 parking spaces, we factor in about 500 square feet per space, so that's about an acre.
An acre. Okay, so you need an acre for parking, and then you need about,
It's
So-
slightly over an acre, but for your consideration, I think that's right.
Just ballpark ideas.
Mhm.
But there are also places on this picture, as I'm looking at it, that are not being used. Right? There's kind of I don't know, the bottom right corner, for example. If the building were expanded, presumably it can go there, but then also on the top edge there where the words amenity space are sitting is also another flat, non-prime agricultural land there. Drains really well, that if needed, parking could go there. So I'm not sure I agree that the parking situation is as dire as
Well,
that.
if you were to do that, and Joyce, I mean, the design could make sense to do so, but you don't want people parking behind the building. You don't want them coming in a separate door that's behind the building. Now, you could create a lobby space that had an entrance on two sides, as long as your reception desk was the connecting point, if you will.
Right, I'm just saying
Yeah,
there is space that's not being utilized right now in this design, and if if making the building a bit bigger means a bit more parking, then there kind of is space. And I don't know that a space behind the building wouldn't actually serve the staff as easily, because I think there's a door down at the end of that. I might be mistaken on this, that there could be an entrance for the town offices on that backside.
mm-hmm.
Um, so that might be the more natural place for staff to park.
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah,
Or-
I mean,
or-
I guess in my head, I'm still getting over the fact that we all agreed, we asked the Deerfield Board of Selectmen to ask for the real plan, and
Yeah.
somehow that will of the Deerfield Select Board was thwarted, and we're not looking at what I thought I was going to look at today. I just got to put that out there. That is just still messing with my head.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe in secret, the Deerfield Board of Selectmen voted
Oh,
to do this,
nope.
but I don't think that's the
Not.
case.
absolutely. not yours.
And so somewhere within the Deerfield town offices, someone is making decisions who's not the Board of Selectmen of Deerfield,
And not the Board of Oversight.
and they're doing it without the input from the Board of Oversight and the Senior Center Director.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm pissed. So just
Well,
putting that out
I'll
there.
take,
I'll
I'll
probably
take the
get over
blame.
that, but yeah.
I'll take the blame on that one.
Well, because Chris, when you came in and you did the open house with the community, we had the space for Whately at a larger scale with different design, and you even shared that with us previously for preliminary.
Yep.
So I mean, great that Deerfield wants to shrink it in their
I don't
footprint
think
or
it's
whatnot.
Deerfield.
Or somebody in
No,
Deerfield,
because you're, well,
not,
Well,
somebody in the
don't like,
office,
don't
so,
loop like all of Deerfield into this. There was a
Right,
discussion somewhere that
somebody in Deerfield, and
reduced
it's
this a
not
bit.
the Board of Selectmen, I don't think.
yeah.
Yep.
But it's just disappointing that, you know, as they gave the oversight to the Board of Oversight of this, you know, like to kind of have this discussion and whatnot, but it's not turning out what we wanted it to be.
Well,
So-
we're in the middle of this. So
So just to ask, if I'm gonna move forward and, you know, do community meetings and show what the needs are, with the list of what we, you know, came up with, the high and medium priorities, you know, I guess my concern at this point is how to do that.
and I had a quick question just to jump in before that. So
Sure.
we've got these two ideas. And do you have kind of ballpark budgets on these, or is this just kind of design at the moment?
This was just concept
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah,
We
concept stuff.
weren't saying
Okay.
that this is the
Right.
be all end all. This was just
Yep.
the next step in the process.
So, like you said, I think it's not a bad exercise. We haven't lost anything to know what this is. But I feel like the tenor is that we want to see can either of these properties get what we want? Or what the needs are, what needs were listed out, 15,000 square foot. You know, what would that do? Ballpark goes away for parking, that kind of thing. I think it makes sense to show, you know, truly what the need is for the community on a set of plans. And then we have this as the backup to say, look, you know, here's where we got to go. But it feels like we really should show what, I mean, I sense from this board that we want to know what 15,000 square feet looks like, because it looks like enough got cut out of there that it isn't really feasible.
Feasible. Understood.
So maybe we just say, hey, you know, yeah, we have this alternative. This is maybe where the community goes eventually because of funds or what the taxpayers can handle. You know, who knows what we'll have for grants now that
Sure.
conditions have changed. So yeah, you know, there'll be a lot of stuff to talk about, but I do think that the board wants to see what 15,000 square feet looks like.
Yep, and that'll be.
Is that what you were thinking, Joyce?
We're talking about getting the full square
Yeah.
footage, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I guess I'm also was looking at the scorecard, and this can be offline. Some of the scores don't make that much sense to me, but some of them do. But maybe the scorecard is premature anyway.
Yeah, it was just a draft, just a
Yeah.
first look at kind of the what the intent of the draft, what the scorecard is. So what we'll do is we'll go back to the drawing board and we'll add those spaces that got lopped off back in and show you guys what that means for each of the sites, you know, in terms of parking, how the building fits, 1 story, 2 story, that'll be the look you see. So it'll be similar information, but it'll show the full program. So sorry for the miscommunication. I'll take the blame on that one.
No worries.
Just a misunderstanding on my part in terms of where we wanted to go with things. So we'll get back on track. We'll get back on track and we'll get you guys what you expected from this group.
Yeah. Hey, you guys, just off topic, you guys are doing the Lennox public safety? Somebody, EDM, did I see that? No?
No, that's not us, no.
Somewhere.
We're up in Williamstown.
Oh, maybe that's where I saw it. Williamstown. Yep, I'm sorry. I was thinking of
in that same area.
Yeah,
out that way.
Yeah. I saw your sign up there when I was up there the other day. So congrats on that. It's gonna be a nice space.
Yeah.
I
think we got our marching orders. It's pretty clear where we need to go with things. So we'll I'll be in touch. I'm hoping that we can turn something around pretty quickly here. So let me talk to the team and we'll try to get something pulled together in the next week or so and do this again.
Great. Well, really appreciate your help and your work on this. I know it's not easy to fit. What do they say, 10 pounds of something in a bag?
That's what we do.
All right, thank you. I gotta run. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Dan, before you go,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're looking at having,
Wednesday at
next Wednesday at 5 o'clock on Zoom
in
and in person for me.
That
Is
should
that
fly.
work for you? 5 o'clock, the
That should
20th?
fly. I'll put it on my calendar.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Jace, do you have to adjourn the meeting?
All right, I would, to hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second,
Okay, all those in favor, Dan,
aye.
Trevor
Trevor.
McDaniel.
Dan Murphy, aye.
Joyce Palmer Fortune, aye. Thanks, everybody, and put the meeting on the calendar, move the Friday one that we had originally scheduled to the
Wednesday,
following,
Okay, the
whatever. date
20th.
you said.
Wednesday at 5. Okay, great.
Okay. Hey, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.